Namah Shivaya, and welcome to meditation. It's interesting today. I I have, like everybody, sometimes what happens when you teach yoga and meditation, people try to pretend that the things around them don't affect them in a negative way, and I always think it's a misguided teaching from yoga teachers when they try to pretend that world events or events surrounding them don't really affect them, or that they don't get upset or angry or depressed or disappointed. We all deal with this. I mean, even that's why it's a practice. That's why we practice these things, because we have to keep coming back and reinvestigating and re-looking at it. And so, the past 48 hours, there's been some stuff in the news that I've found is really disturbing, and my mind is totally like racing and and going from like extremes of fear to absolute rage and anger. One of the things that upset me was it was revealed that a government official in Pennsylvania who, a Republican conspiracy theory kind of talk, when it comes to this virus, he tested positive for the virus, and he continued to go to meetings knowing he was infected, and meetings that, I guess from what I read, it kind of implied that it was mostly a Democratic committee that was involved on a committee that he was involved with, and he exposed these people to this virus. And I guess there was like one of the Democratic senators from Pennsylvania went on a rant on Facebook, and kind of really said how infuriating it was that this guy would knowingly walk into a room without a mask or without, and basically kind of, try to infect his colleagues, is how they felt that was playing out. And it upset me because and I've talked about this both in the classes that Catherine and I teach, and also I've talked about a little bit on this, is that dealing with this pandemic, it pulls up issues that I experienced as a gay man, especially in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, of dealing with the HIV virus and the HIV epidemic. And it's what's so disturbing about what had this Republican senator has done is that, during the mid 90s, there were people who were infected with HIV that knew they were infected, and they were purposely going out and having unprotected sex, or they were damaging condoms, manipulating people, and infecting people on purpose, and then either informing the person they infected that they had infected them, or also kind of denying it. There were cases both in the heterosexual community and the homosexual community, and these cases kind of, they surfaced in the media, the news media, and there were a couple of situations. There was one with a heterosexual male who had infected like all of these women, and there was also a situation of a couple of gay men who had infected men, where they actually took them to trial, and attempted murder cases that these guys ended up in jail. um, because they knew that they were infected with a disease that could kill, a virus that could kill, and they were purposely, infecting people. And so when I read this, it immediately made me think of like what I knew that some people that I was close to had experienced as gay men: manipulation and dishonesty, people lying to them, and relationships. More than one situation. And it seems to me that that if you're in government, you should know about these types of situations, and that you should have enough um, integrity that you wouldn't jeopardize other people's lives for the sake of like partisan polarization in politics. That you're on this kind of crazy side that the virus itself is a hoax, or that that it's like this is insanity. So as a yogi, I'm trying very, 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 very hard to not let it like pull up these, like I said, these old emotions from an earlier experience. But it's very, very difficult because you see how heartless and cold humans can be. That while yogis love to talk about love and compassion and open-heartedness and tapping into that, the reason why we're able to talk about that is because of cold-heartedness and the opposite of like people who are so filled with anger and hate and disdain for their fellow man, that is actually what allows us to talk about love and compassion. You have to, there's those two polar opposites kind of tugging away, and it's the experience of both those polar opposites that get us to choose one over the other. And we're not always clear as spiritual teachers that some people choose the other, that they purposely choose the vice of hate, of anger, of destruction. And the only way that we can really combat that kind of thing is for those of us who have chosen peace and love and unconditional love. Like you still love these people on this other side that have chosen that you haven't chosen. Is that you have to be willing to call them out for their destructive mode, and their choices. That to kind of sit around the campfire and to sing kumbaya and try to turn your head away from that is it's not going to work. Other thing that was most very disturbing is our national leadership. Sometimes I don't even like to say the guy's name. Here again, unconditional love. He's a child of Brahman, but I have my limitations. He's called out on social media for promoting something that isn't true. And, I think that the social media that he got called out on did the right thing and said, fact check. Here's a button for your fact check. This is not facts. And he's putting in a presidential order that would say that social media isn't responsible and can't edit a post. And it's like, because of his little tiny ego, his little childlike ego, do you understand the Pandora's box you're opening up? You know, I mean, we're not talking about, I mean, there's the stuff that we are sometimes willing to talk about on the surface, like hate speech or things like that. We're talking now that you could actually go in and say, there's a presidential order that says that child pornography is okay on social media. That there's, because this guy gets called out. And there was a really wonderful article, I think it was in uh, Vice, I think, or one of those, that they kind of listed like the Pandora's box that is going to be opened up if this executive order goes into play. And I'm like, you're going to hurt, you know, the most vulnerable because of your ego. And, unfortunately, we're constantly dealing with one person's ego who it's like these myths of yoga of the asura who is, just has somehow gotten a favor and like can just do anything and you can't stop them. Um, but this is really disturbing. That you know you would open up that kind of floodgate without thinking, and this is leadership, you know. So I'm concerned right now that because of the virus and this taking this long and um, you know the situation that we've all been put in where it's very hard to protest, it's very hard to be a spiritual activist and in group settings and march and demonstrate like we used to do, that all of the sleaziest disgusting slime will crawl out from under the rocks to take advantage of the situation. And and in ways that like are almost, it's like it puts you in this state because it's unbelievable that someone doesn't have the morality and the scruples to pull themselves back from the edge of doing something like that. Um, and at the same time, as becoming the witness and pulling back from it, you are able to see both, all of the good in humanity and and all of it, all of the worst. Um, and there has to be something said about yoga allowing you to do that too, to see both sides of the coin without uh, being on that coin, kind of pulling back, being the witness to it, and then making a decision. And this goes back to what I've talked about more than once. Um, when we talk about the Bhagavad Gita, I'm paraphrasing, but basically Krishna says, look at the extremes here. Here's one extreme, here's the other. Calm your mind, make a decision, and do your dharma. And the same thing has to be said here too. Look at both extremes, calm your mind, and do what is really good for the totality. Stand up, speak out any way you can against this kind of energy that can really lead humanity down a very, very, very dark hole. And for those of you who expected a little lighter note today, I'm sorry that I'm not capable of giving you a more rosy, positive outlook at what is kind of taking place in our society right now. I think these are very, very dark times. Very dark times. So, setting up nice and tall, close your eyes, focus your mind, and start to cultivate the ability to be the witness. That witness starts within your own body, right? You have a body, you have a mind, you're not the body, you're not the mind. But the mind and the body are both tools to help you elevate consciousness. So we start that out on the gross level. The body. How does the body feel as you sit down? How does is your back hurting? Is your ankles hurting? Does your knees or hips hurt? Acknowledge that. Be the witness to it. But once you find your seat, commit to it. Don't fidget. Don't move. Be the witness to it. Allow it to happen. Allow it to exist. Nobody has ever died because their ankle fell asleep. So don't move it. Be the witness to it. Both the discomfort and the pleasure of having an ankle. And acknowledge the breath. And notice how, as you breathe normally, the breath may be erratic, inhale shorter, exhale shorter, longer, space in between. Even that out, like take an iron to the breath and smooth out all the wrinkles. And inhale deeply. And exhale deeply. Inhale deeply. And exhale deeply. And as you inhale and exhale deeper, notice how the mind relaxes. Notice how, even though you're keeping the body upright in a seated position, you feel more relaxed. The mind may be racing still. The mind may be agitated, jumping from thought to thought, keeping you from being the witness. The mantra I'm going to use is Om. And that sound of Om is that sound of higher consciousness, a higher vibration. Now, you may notice that when I chant Om at the beginning and the ending of the meditation, there is a more external tone to that Om because I am sending energy out. But in meditation, I'm bringing the energy of Om inward. So there's a more internal resonating sound, a deeper vibration within. As you inhale, hear the sound of Om. As you exhale, hear the sound of Om within yourself. Inhale deeply the sound of Om. Exhale deeply the sound of Om. As you inhale the sound of Om, see the symbol of Om within the mind's eye. As you exhale the sound of Om, see the symbol of Om within the mind's eye. Continue to hear the sound of Om within your deep inhale and see that symbol of Om within the mind's eye as you inhale. And as you exhale that sound of Om deeply, see the symbol of Om within the mind's eye. As thoughts rise, focus on that symbol and sound of Om within yourself. Keep coming back to the mantra. Keep coming back to the internal visualization. Keep coming back to the breath, calming the mind, and allowing yourself to be the witness to the mind. Now deeply. Exhale fully. Silently tell yourself, I'm not this body. Silently tell yourself, I'm not this mind. Silently tell yourself, I am not these thoughts. Silently tell yourself, I am not these emotions. Tell yourself you are Swayam Prakashit, self-illuminating, eternal, infinity, everlasting, light. Inhale for the sound of Om. Bringing the hands together, rubbing the hands together, building heat within the hands. And bring the hands over the eyes. Allow the heat from the hands to be absorbed into the eyes. Bring the hands across the forehead, the top of the head, down the nape of the neck. And then bring the hands together in prayer, bowing down, giving thanks and praise for the teachings of yoga from the past, the present, and those are still yet to be revealed. Om Bolo Sadguru Bhagavan Ki Jai. Thank you for showing up and meditating and practicing with me. I will see you tomorrow. Have a beautiful, beautiful